Welcome to another episode of Investing in Intellectual Property with Dave. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This gentleman has founded a company that provides a revolutionary recovery device to Olympians, to professional athletes, and now the everyday person. Please help me welcome Anthony Kjenstad. How's it going, Anthony?
It's going good, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you kind of giving me some time today. I know we were talking offline here, and I'm definitely going to order some of these things to try to help me out with this basketball recovery as I play basketball, a couple times a week, and try to kind of not be kind of bedridden the next day after playing basketball because my legs aren't kind of totally shot. So I guess this is a pretty interesting technology, and I kind of want to start with, if it's okay for you to maybe explain, I guess, how the device works, because I know as I was kind of preparing for the interview, it took me some time, and I know we had talked about me doing ice and stem from my days playing college football at Michigan State University, and this being, I guess, having the same, overall effect or trying to accomplish the overall goal that ice and stem maybe is trying to provide, but doing it a different way, definitely doing it a different way. So can you maybe explain a little bit about the recovery Firefly device?
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about your days back at Michigan State, ice and stem. Fast forward to 2024, ice is pretty much no longer in the athletic training room.
Really?
Ice is really, in my opinion, kind of from what I hear, I'm not a scientist, but ice is for pain, and that's all it's really used for. Pain, anything. So immediate. First 10 minutes of an ankle sprain, maybe you throw it on, but outside of that, you want to increase blood flow. Again, back to when you were playing, recovery wasn't really a thing. Now everybody speaks to recovery, and some people would say recovery is as important as you being in the gym, working out, and on the playing, practice field practicing. You got to recover as hard as you practice and you work out. And there's a lot of modalities on the market. Things to squeeze to your body. Our product looks like that traditional stem that you work with back in your playing days, but it actually functions more like pneumatic compression. And the backstory to the technology is it never really intended to be a recovery tool. It started off as a medical device. The standard of care to prevent blood clots actually in the hospital is by the standard of care is pneumatic compression. So they put these little squeezers on your ankles, and they squeeze every minute, and that increases blood flow and helps with circulation and helps with preventing blood clots. What our company figured out and patented was a idea that stimulating the nervous system with a modified electrical stim signal, specifically the lower extremity nervous system, actually ended up increasing blood flow anywhere from 32 to 300% more effective than pneumatic compression. Wow. So started as a medical device to prevent a blood clot, ended up being in the athletic training room for recovery because circulation's a good thing post-training, post-exercise.
So then in terms of pneumatic compression, and I see these and I've been seeing them for whatever reason a lot more lately, where you have, say if someone is sitting down and they have these big bags over each of their legs, that covers the entire legs, and it seems like it's kind of compressing it, and I'm assuming that's trying to increase the blood flow throughout the body, or at least throughout the legs. Is that what you mean when you say pneumatic compression?
Correct, yes. So that actually is a medical technology as well. Those pumps that you see out there, those big boots, you see these athletes sitting in a corner plugged into a wall, that's basically pneumatic compression, initially intended for athletes who had very bad lymphatic issues, and they were getting a lot of swelling, a lot of lymph swelling. Those devices were meant to pulse and put pneumatic compression across the limb, very light pressure to stimulate the lymphatic system to flush out the lower extremity. What's happening is they end up finding themselves in the athletic training room, turned up at much higher volumes, and the athletes were reporting a sense of recovery or a sense of fresh legs. And so, similar, our technology was used to increase blood flow in one way, ended up finding itself in the athletic training room. For a lot of, if you think about the pneumatic compression boots, if they work well, which they do, and the report is good on them, you can't use them in a lot of places that you need athletic recovery, i.e. long bus rides, flights. You just finished your basketball game. You're not going to run home and go sit in your boots. You're going to maybe hang out at the court with your buddies. Maybe you guys go get dinner or something like that. The advantage of Firefly is it allows you to start that recovery process earlier. And if you look at the research, we really think you should be in our devices a minimal of 2-hour doses,
Gotcha.
2 to 4 to kind of maximize the effect of it. So we just allow you to get into the devices long enough to have a dramatic effect on recovery. But yeah, we kind of both live in the same space.
Gotcha. So is it like 2 to 4 hours like per day? Is that like the maximum per day, or can you do that kind of multiple times throughout the day if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing maybe 2 days or something, you talked about today, maybe you would use the Firefly a couple times throughout the day. But I would say the bulk of our athletes are, either in a game and then they're throwing them on and they're jumping on a bus or a flight or headed home, or they're in a really high-end practice, where they might, or they're doing legs day today, right? And they want to feel refreshed and recovered the next day. There's really no, back in my day, recovery was a day, right? You take a day off and that's your recovery day. These athletes don't take days off anymore, right? They need to put recovery and make it a part of their daily regimen, depending on the athlete. I mean, but we talk to, we talk to people who are working out every single day. There is no day to take off. And, this is something that we can add to the end of their day that's easy to do. And that's the big thing for anything that we probably do in life, right? If it's easy, we'll do it. If it takes a lot of effort, maybe we won't find time for that. And that's another advantage of our product that we've heard back from teams is like, it's just so easy for our athletes to do it. And it doesn't stop them from doing other things. So yeah, I mean, if you're putting yourself through that type of double day right now most of our athletes, a couple hours a day and they'll get their recovery from Firefly.
Gotcha. And I think, did you have maybe a like the device that you can show in just so I guess the audience can see once the video interview comes out?
So if you look at it, I mean, it still looks medical, right? It comes in that medical cellophane, peel pack that, back in my day, I was a surgical rep. We'd peel open the packs and hand out the product. So it still looks like it's medical device. It's basically a pretty simple technology. It's 2 electrodes with a battery. And when you put them on, you got a little indicator line here that you're going to put on the leg. Really, it's pretty simple. You just got 2 electrodes on the back. After your work, you use the device for 2 hours, you put it back on the backing strip. You take the 2 units, throw it in your backpack, and you can kind of use these over and over again. But pretty simple technology. Looks like STEM, like I said, but really functions more like pneumatic compression, but arguably a little better.
Gotcha. So, and again, I apologize for the questions. And this partly is for me because good thing about these interviews is I learn a ton as well, which is kind of similar to my kind of day job as a patent attorney because you're kind of dealing with a lot of different stuff. So with the compression, is that, I know we talked about the pneumatic compression, does that have an element of like, that stimulation with like electrodes, or is that maybe just specifically to like the stem part of it?
Yes, pneumatic compression is strictly compression, and depending on the device out there, there's 4 or 5 good technologies on the market. They kind of start at the bottom and inflate up the leg, right? And they have chambers, and they kind of gradually if you think about it, they kind of squeeze from the bottom and push it out the other side, right? So no form of stimulation at all. And your old school stem, not old school, but the stem you used back in the day, that was probably more neuromuscular stem where you identify a specific muscle group that you want to fire. And you can only do that for small periods of time because you fatigue the muscle. We look like that technology, but when you stimulate the nervous system, you're actually causing the body to kind of use its own lymphatic system or firing system to flush itself out on its own. And that's really the advantage is portable, wearable, slap and go technology, using your own nervous system to increase circulation. That's really when we start talking about the patent and what this company found, they saw an unmet need in the hospital. If you think about the hospital space, and I know that's not your background, but if you think about all these people that have pneumatic compression in a bed and they're not able to move, right? And they're tethered to a bed with these pumps and tubes. A lot of them just don't tolerate them. They can't take them off and on. If they leave the hospital bed, they forget to put them on. So there's really a problem in that space. The company saw an unmet need there and basically figured out that you could stimulate the nervous system to do a better job. And it was more applicable to the hospital because it would be able to take care of more patients. And that was really the thought behind the technology, the unmet need, and where they started figuring out and patenting and bringing to market this medical solution that was better than the previous standard of care or gold standard.
Gotcha. And I guess this is curious before kind of maybe getting a little bit off into the kind of IP and the opportunity that you found. What, I guess, inspired you to maybe get involved? Because I know we talked about your background is a little bit kind of, it's not necessarily, I mean, as far as being an inventor, it isn't necessarily the inventor. So is it something that, or what made you kind of found the company say, okay, we're going to target athletes and kind of maybe performers as opposed to, say, the medical side of things?
Strictly luck. And, honestly, my background's medical device in the orthopedic world. And my physicians challenged me with, about 8 years ago in the healthcare space. The standard, if you needed a total joint 8 years ago, you would go into a hospital and it would be a 3 to 5 day process. You would have your total joint done and they would literally monitor you. They would bring PT to you. You would get up and move. And really it was a 3 to 5 day process of a total joint. Wow. 8 years ago, that started to happen in ambulatory surgery centers where they're discharging you and sending you home within 8 hours. Right.
That's crazy.
And that's kind of the progress of medicine, right? And one of the things the physicians were concerned about was getting a blood clot at home. If that patient just went home and wasn't forced to move by PT, they might just go home and sit on their couch and not do anything. And one of the big concerns was blood clots. So they really were like, hey, all we really know is we need to send these pneumatic compression devices home with our patients. And it really wasn't feasible or possible because these devices were very expensive and you just couldn't get them home to the patient. Secondarily, insurance didn't pay for it, right? So we had this little challenge and I literally went to my Google and said portable wearable DVT prophylaxis and did some research. And this company came out, popped up from the UK and had came at preventing a blood clot from a completely different angle than the standard of care. I got interested in it. I met the founder through LinkedIn, as we all probably do nowadays. We chase people down. Yep. And over a period of time became friends. They hadn't patented the technology in the US for all the indications for use. So their move into the US market was really based on finalizing their 510K approvals and their patents. So I actually sat in a calling pattern with them for about 9 months, but we stayed very connected. And in that 9 months process, they decided finally to come to the US market and I helped them kind of launch the medical side. And it also kind of found its way into the athletic training room. So I helped them launch both products at the same time.
Wow. So they were just going to stay in the UK, you're saying, even on a medical side, but for, I guess, kind of coming in contact with you, which you kind of maybe helped them out, the decision as far as coming in to the US on the medical side, as well as kind of the athletic performance side with this, with the device?
I wouldn't say that. So everybody wants to do business in the US on the medical side. US is the place to be. So all companies want to come to the US. It's where the global market is. If you might not succeed in the UK, you might not succeed in other, European countries, but if you succeed here, this is where the dollars are, right? And early invention or early adoption, from my perspective, the culture of medicine in the US seems to be more open to early adoption of technology. So they always knew they wanted to be here, but they hired a guy like you, probably, to say, hey, don't come here yet until you make sure, because when you launch a product like this that's so innovative, you're going to have copycats. And the founder of the company is a guy by the name of Bernard Ross, and he told me the story of kind of he came from a medical background around medications, right? That's kind of where he cut his teeth in the medical world, and medications and new products to market in that space are very, very patent protected, and because they invest a lot of money to bring those
R&D
market, right? And they patent these products, you would know better than I, 15 ways from Sunday, right? Like they look at every angle, and before they go to market, they want to make sure that they have a window of time before somebody else can come out with a product that competes. Yep. He took that same mentality with this medical technology on the electrical stem side. So really in the US, nobody can say, there's tons of NMES technologies out there, but nobody can say they can peripherally stimulate the nervous system to increase circulation. And he patented that many ways. So that's really why we've had no competitors in our world for the last 8 years. And I think it's another 10, 12 years out. But no, he wanted to come to the US. He just couldn't come until he figured out how to make sure it was bulletproof.
Gotcha.
And now he's, been in the market for 8, 9, 10 years in the US on the medical side. But really, Firefly adopted a little quicker than the medical. The medical's still out there. They're still doing business in the hospitals and stuff. But Firefly's really been the thing that launched. And I think it didn't have a barrier to entry like insurance payment, right? This was a cash pay price. The consumers were paying for it, or the teams were paying for it. Because of my background, I really launched this in athletic training rooms first. So, the consumer market's really been our last 2 to 3 years. But the first 5 years was really just B2B athletic training rooms like Michigan State, your alma mater, my alma mater, Arizona. Like we've went to all those meetings to find the medical and athletic training staff that make decisions around recovery. And that's kind of where we launched the Firefly.
Oh, yeah. And it's pretty interesting because when you start, and a lot of people don't know this, things can get a little tricky once you start, at least on the IP side, kind of protecting things across the pond, if you will, because, you have timelines and kind of bar dates. A lot of times people do a PCT application, which is kind of a Paris Cooperation Treaty, which kind of notifies all the countries who signed up to be a part of that Paris Cooperation Treaty that, hey, okay, this person has filed a patent application, and then you have, say, 30 months from that earliest date to decide what countries you want to go in. And as you mentioned, everybody is going to want to come into the U.S. Just because that's where the dollars are. So that's cool that you end up seeing that opportunity. And I guess when you saw it initially, because again, it seems like you were maybe tasked based on what you were doing in the medical field to kind of bring a similar technology to patients. So when you saw it, did you automatically think I can do this on a performance side, or was it more so, hey, that kind of just came over time and you initially kind of became, I guess, was in communication with the inventor on the medical side?
Yeah, I mean, my full focus was medical when I met them, and they had actually had a little bit of experience in the UK with teams pulling it into the athletic training and using it for recovery. So they were kind of told, hey, your recovery product as well. And being a medical device company, they were like, that's cool, but we don't really want to be we don't want to really be a recovery product. They tried a little bit, but imagine it just wasn't in their wheelhouse to sell to the consumer. So they did spend a little time and obviously branded it and launched it. When they came to the US market, and he knew my background of also spending a lot of time with athletic trainers and training rooms and working with the orthopedic surgeons that take care of those teams, he actually pitched me. He was like, hey, I know you want the Geko, which is the medical version. He's like, but I think you do a really good job with the Firefly. Are you interested? And so I went. It was one of the most glorious days of my sales day ever, because I actually am pretty connected in LA, more than I probably think I am. But the day that this guy came into town, I had him in the Lakers locker room, the Kings locker room, USC, UCLA, and I think like the Anaheim Angels. And And actually during the time, it was Gary Vitti and Kobe Bryant's last game. And I was in that training room pitching Gary Vitti, the head athletic trainer for the Lakers, the day he's retiring.
Really? Is that the game that Kobe hit the 60 points or whatever it was?
You know what? I don't even remember because I'm not actually a Lakers fan, but I'm a Gary Vitti fan. And then the Lakers and the Kings used to share the same building, actually. So we rolled over to the Kings facility, and the Kings were in the playoffs. And so we had these Fireflies on, like the goalie, and I'm a huge Kings fan. So I was, I'm in their athletic training room a lot on the other side of the business. And so, imagine me bringing this UK guy that really only knows Premier League soccer and maybe cricket or whatever. Yeah. And he's in the most prominent athletic training rooms in LA, and he has no idea who these people are. Right. So it's like a great day for me and a day for him. He's like, I don't even know who the Kings are. I've never watched a hockey game in my life. But that's how we launched it. And my athletic trainers told me, you've got something here. This makes a lot of sense. I think you should invest some time in it. I really still thought at the time the medical product would be the product.
Right.
But it ended up being Firefly. Over a period of 8 years now, we're in almost every pro and college team in the country. And it's been a awesome journey. But I really thought Geko would have been the big product, and it will be someday, but Firefly's really kind of done well.
So would you say that the Firefly has kind of taken off and surpassed, at least in the US here, what the Geko has been able to do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. By 90% more sales than Geko locally.
Wow. And again, that makes perfect sense as it relates to what you were saying earlier about teams these days. You have back-to-backs, you have game, you finish, you're getting on a bus, you're getting on a plane, and you can't take this heavy, bulky equipment, or you don't want to take the heavy, bulky equipment, the expensive equipment. It needs something that's easy, extremely effective. It seems like that's still going to give the athlete the performance, the recovery that it needs so that they can perform the way they need to that next day.
Yeah. I mean, think about your days at Michigan State. Think about what that would look like now with all these conference realignments. I wasn't an athlete at Arizona, but Arizona is going to play Virginia Tech this year, right? They're going to be East Coast, West Coast. I mean, the conference realignments have really challenged these athletes from a travel perspective. And that's one of the big areas where we're used. There's a lot of inflammatory response at altitude. You've got a low heart rate as an athlete. You don't get a lot of circulation. You take these external devices that we have, you slap them on, easy to use in a flight, and the athletes land and they feel better. They feel ready to perform. So we have a lot of upside ahead for us with all these conference realignments.
So then I guess the question becomes, because I think I was reading something or listening, and you have some Olympians that are kind of using the device. And I had a question as far as, because of school, and we talked about it offline a little bit, where whether it's collegiate or professional ranks, that athletic facility or the athletic kind of program or team, in a lot of ways, particularly at the professional level, it can be almost night and day different from the athlete. In other words, like you said, Gary Vitti, and he's the athletic trainer for the Lakers, or a former athletic trainer for the Lakers, and you would think that everybody within a Lakers organization, at least from an athletic standpoint, the players or whatnot, would use the devices or whatever it is that the athletic program wants you to use. But it seems like a lot of times these athletes, like LeBron James, they have their own team. So did you find yourself having to pitch to both, say, the Lakers program, but then also the team? I mean, the players on the team, or how did that work?
It's just a hustle, right? I mean, you just I think you go, probably any business you go in with perceptions of who your customer is, and then you get into it and you realize, like, okay, I have a lot of call points, right? One team might be the athletic trainer and the strength and conditioning coach, and if they have a sports scientist, and it depends on the league too. Like a lot of, like the NHL, for instance, I feel like the athletes in the NHL listen more to what's going on in the athletic training room. There's more conversation between the staff and that. But then when you've got the NBA, where you've maybe got 12 athletes, but maybe 7 high minutes guys, and then they're all gazillionaires. And LeBron showed, I think, hey, if you invest in your body, you're going to be able to maintain a long career. So he has his own guy, like Tom Brady had his own
Yeah, I was
guy.
going to say Tom Brady as well.
You know, so we have to kind of sell and educate everybody, constantly. Another new sport we've gotten into recently is NASCAR. I don't know if you watched. So I'm not a huge NASCAR fan, but I watched the race yesterday, and when they announced the teams, it's not just the driver, it's the pit crew, and every pit crew member is Michigan State linebacker, NCAA baseball player. They're athletes.
I would have never guessed that.
It's crazy, and they do 9 to 12 pit stops in a race, and they got to change all that stuff in 9 seconds. And if you think about it, they travel 40 weeks a year. So not only is it constant training, constant getting better, constant like an athlete, tons of training back at the facility, and then the travel is a big thing, right? They finished in Phoenix yesterday. They literally jumped on a flight probably at 8, 9 o'clock. They were home by like 2. So fatigue, inflammation's a big thing. But where I was going with this is, I thought they were like, if I'm talking to the pit crew, I'm talking to the driver too. Like they're a team, right? Completely different athlete, completely different regimen, completely different strength and conditioning department. Like the athlete and the pit crew are really separate. So every business is, you get inside of it and you're like, hey, I'm going to do it. And then you realize, no, that's not how I'm going to do it. You have to do it a different way. But Olympics, you brought up Olympics. We're super excited for France. We've got a ton of athletes hitting us up constantly, learning about our technology. It's an embarrassingly good time for us right now. For just the inquiries we get, like our team, we pinch ourselves all the time. Like, an athlete will reach out and we might not even know them, but we'll look them up on Instagram or whatever. Like they have 600,000 followers or they have 1 million followers. And, we're in a lot of good conversations right now. And we're super blessed and happy and it's cool to be a part of their journey. You know what I mean? And be able to kind of give them be a little part of the journey.
No, and I think you had said something in there, which is a good segue as far as informing what is the Firefly, how does it work? I know a lot of times, and this is a big thing that I kind of want you to talk about, because I think the audience will get something out of this, where a lot of times you have something, you have a product, you have a device, and this is a really good device, but I interviewed Wayne Fromm. That interview came out last week, the inventor of the selfie stick, and he was saying early on, people just didn't know what it was. It sat on shelves and sat in a box. But when he started to explain it and demo it and show people how it worked, they were buying it like hotcakes. So I guess maybe a 2-part question. Number one, why do you think is that? And number two, how have you kind of been able to get around that or to have success doing that? Because I would imagine the same thing. If you see this device, you're like, okay, it looks cool, but I guess what is it? And then once you explain it, like it's almost like maybe a light bulb will go off and they say, okay, great, I want it, because it makes perfect sense for what it is and how I can use it and kind of make myself perform better.
Yeah. So that's our Achilles heel, for lack of a better term, is we are not an intuitive product. You do not walk by this at Best Buy and go, oh, that's a recovery product, right? So we're, that being said, we're not in any of those facilities. We've been asked by retailers, Dick's, Best Buy, et cetera. We're just not ready for that yet. We're still a very medical product. I need the 3-minute pitch, right? So if you get on my website, we're giving you the 3-minute pitch, but most people don't have the attention even for that. So you get influencers, you get athletes. We've got Carrie Walsh. She's an investor in the company. She does our pitch for us. She talks about fitting it. You try all sorts of different things. We still go to a ton of meetings. We still go to a lot of, face-to-face stuff wherever we get a chance. But yeah, the product isn't intuitive, but back to the electrode, there's just a very simple technology, 2 electrodes here on the side of the product. You actually, with a little indicator line, if you feel down on the lateral side of your leg, there's a prominent bone just below your joint line, kind of towards the back. That's called your fibular head. And if you put that little line on the fibular head and you gel it down on the leg, and then you turn it on with this little light, you're going to get a little blink. And then what you do is you actually increase the intensity until you get this little foot flutter. And really what that is there's a nerve that runs from your hip to your toe. It's called the peroneal nerve, and it goes all the way down into the foot. When you stimulate that nerve, you get a little dorsiflexion of the foot or a little calf pump.
Yep.
So basically by stimulating that nerve, we figured out we're 300% better than compressing your lower extremity. You're using your own nervous system to compress the blood out. So in the medical world, prevents a blood clot because it prevents stasis. You literally can't get a blood clot if you have them. In the athletic world, it just gives you a flush, right? And it gives you all the blood flow back to your heart. So you're getting recovery, but you're also getting this fresh legs flush by just stimulating your nervous system. So we haven't figured out how to be this. Probably most of your listeners have never heard of us because of that problem, that we are not intuitive. We're kind of a niche product. Recovery's big, but we're a niche product in this world trying to kind of climb our way into becoming a more not niche product. But in my opinion, we are the most effective product in the athletic training room, and we will be seen as a leader in the recovery space in the future. But we don't have the pressures of a Nike, whatever, of having to grow at this level. Like, we're growing great. Every day is a good day over here. And, we'll we have a lot of 15 minutes of fame. The Dodgers just said, they're going to Korea, and they wrote about using our product as part of the recovery regimen. So we get articles like that we didn't pay for. And then we'll see a spike in sales for 2 weeks, a week and a half. Tampa Bay said we were their secret, sauce for travel for Germany last year. We got this huge spike in sales. We have a lot of those. They used to be bumps, and now we get like a couple bumps a month. And as we grow the business and retain our customer, that's kind of how we're going to grow this thing. It's just a lot of this education.
Right. No, and I think that's definitely, I definitely agree with that. One of the things, because again, it seems like a lot of it initially was on the athletes or the professional team, just kind of performers, professional athletes, collegiate athletes, things like that. But then how did it come like, hold on, the light bulb went off at some point to say, okay, this is an everyday purchase. So again, I'm way past my playing days, but if I'm playing basketball or if I'm working out, it's just an everyday person now at this point. I can still benefit from that. I think one of the shows that I saw you on when I was kind of preparing for this interview talked about pickleball and how that was a growing sport, the fastest growing sport here, and how a lot of people kind of play a lot of pickleball. I'm a member at Lifetime, and every time I go in there, you see people playing pickleball and how this product would be great for that. So I guess at what point did the light bulb go off and say, okay, we can not only market this to athletes that may be competing at a high level, whether it's the Olympics, collegiate, or professional ranks, but we can also do this to the everyday person who's, just kind of want to recover since their recovery is slowed down from when they're in their 20s or their 30s.
Yeah. We always knew we wanted to go to the consumer. But I think, like, if you believe in your product and you're in this space, you don't want to sell something that you don't continue to validate at a very high level. And because my background is medical device, I probably am too medical when it comes to device, right? And I wanted to prove that this product worked at a very high level in a community that I had access to, right? Okay. So the first couple of years was just me saying, I'm going to do that. And my background's medical device, so it was really B2B, right? Yep. We always knew we wanted to sell to consumers, so we built a website, just like anybody else does. But, don't believe everybody on, that it's so easy to build a website and you can create an online business and people are just going to flood your, it's really hard. And you got to hire really smart people that, and it's a very challenging world of constant. I mean, I think we've designed our website 20 times and we're constantly redesigning it because, things change of where you design it, who sees it, what metrics can you find on, all these things I don't even know about, Google, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that challenged us is COVID. right? I mean, the teams weren't playing. So you're like, all right, we gotta sell this product to somebody else for a minute. And that's really allowed us to really go to market and the consumer and focus on that. I mean, we always knew we were going to do it. That kind of pushed us down that path because we had a year and a half of really nobody buying, nobody traveling, teams playing in the bubble, those type of things where we had to reinvent ourselves a little bit. We're now 50-50. We're selling 50% of our product to the consumer.
Wow.
And 50% to the athletic training room.
That seems like that's a big number, especially, I know you said you guys were planning on doing that at some point, but it seems like kind of being creative during that COVID really paid off in that way.
Yeah, it's a constant learning, right? The minute you think you got to figure it out, Facebook changes the algorithm, TikTok, this. It's been a cool journey. Anybody who says it's easy is definitely, don't believe them. It's still a lot of hard work. It's opportunities, it's just a lot of content and believing in your product. I mean, every day when you wake up, I'm sure you believe in what you do and it's easy to sell. Our world is easy because the feedback that we get on a daily basis is really embarrassingly good. It's how do we find that next, we know, we feel like half the PGA golfers are watching holes a game. We know we're on the PGA cart. We know, but how do we take that messaging and get it to your general consumer, right? And those are the challenges. Pickleball, to your point, you brought it up. Everybody talking about pickleball. It's like growing, blowing. We've went to many pickleball matches, trying to explain, I would say, an older athlete the importance of recovery.
Yep.
It's not as easy as you think.
Really? You think they would eat it up?
Yeah, but it's just, it's figuring out the messaging, what's important to them. All those things that I have no background on. So I've hired really smart people behind me to help us figure that out. And that's a constant journey of just education, right? So we've got elite pickleballers that are talking about our product. We got elite volleyball players that are talking about our product and elite runners that are talking about our product. But, it's just grind. And again, we have a lot of 15 minutes of fame that never really, you see those movies where they have the one thing they're on TV and then for the rest of their life, they've, it's really not like that. It's like blip, blip, blip. But we're enjoying the ride. It's been amazing. We've had some recent, I'd love to talk back to you. So we are in this process of seeing competitors now, and we know we have a patent. Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting, and I'd love to hear your perspective is, you buy patent insurance, right?
Yeah. And I guess I'm not too, I know patent insurance is a thing. I guess I'm not maybe too in the know of that. But I think as you put it earlier, and anytime you have a product that's kind of looking, it's conceptual because something has to be going right for people. They're not going to copycat something or copy or infringe something that isn't doing well or that I guess isn't worth infringing. So to the extent that it's worth copying and that somebody feel like they can earn a couple quick bucks doing it, then they will do it. Now it's interesting because I think you guys just sell on the website, right? You guys don't do like Amazon or anything like that, correct?
We don't do Amazon. We sell, B2B, and then on our website we have a few resellers in that space.
Gotcha.
But we recently did see a competitor, and we're like, well, they can't do that, right? And so we're going through that process of like learning. Okay, when do you go slap their hand? Like how far do you want them to get down the path before you slap the hand? And like how do you, how do you not like let that get in your mind and just keep doing your own journey, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, for me as a patent attorney, I would say the earlier the better for a number of different reasons. You don't want to, I guess, having to be answered. Say, for example, if it does come to the point where you're in court, you don't want to seemed like you were complicit in letting them do something where you knew something, you knew that they were doing this and not doing anything, because that's something that you don't want to have to try to explain to the judge or whatnot in court. Yeah. But another thing is if they're infringing and they get a cease and desist letter and they continue to do it, that then they can be on the hook for treble damages if it did go to court and they were they were told to stop and they kind of did it anyway. To the extent that they I guess have the money to pay for it, they can be on the hook for 3 times the amount of damages as a result of them just turning a blind eye. But I think that another thing that I think is worth pointing out, a lot of times people think that, okay, for example, I'll use the selfie stick because that's what I'm looking at here. A lot of times people think that, okay, a person cannot, I have a patent on the selfie stick, so nobody cannot make any type of device that's, a selfie stick or remotely close to a selfie stick. And it really depends on what is in the claim. So you get an actual patent that you're looking at. The claims are, I guess, the meat and potatoes of the patent. That's going to kind of describe what's the scope of protection, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you have, I have this pen here. So if you have, a pen, which is that's something that's it's been around forever. But so, I would imagine that when it first came out, and say you had this kind of clicking device, if that was different from what traditional pens that didn't have the clicking device on, the patents would be, the claims of the patent would be kind of geared toward that inventive aspect of it. Because a lot of times patents aren't just this groundbreaking stuff where you're going from the house phone to the iPhone or so. They typically are not like kind of groundbreaking. It's typically incremental improvement. Yeah. So a lot of what's protected it will be in the claims, and that's going to be able to define that scope of protection so that if somebody else is kind of infringing the scope of the claims, then at that point you can have a kind of recourse against them. Another reason I asked about the Amazon, because Amazon I know some people don't like Amazon, some people do, but Amazon has a really good Apex program where if you're selling on Amazon and somebody else, a copycat comes, you can kind of get that taken down just by kind of showing the patent. And it's kind of really, it's a, compared to what you're going to spend in the length of things kind of playing out in court, that the Amazon program is extremely quick if you have an infringer that's selling on Amazon. So that's to the extent that someone is selling on Amazon, that's another way you can go about it. But yeah, I guess it's a tricky thing, and I'm not sure how. I guess I know the patent insurance, like you said, is out there, but I guess I'm maybe not too much into the know of, I guess, how that works.
Yeah, I'm learning as I go, but it's interesting when you have been told so much that this is patented 15 ways from Sunday and you don't worry about it, and then you see a competitor saying exactly the same things that that they can't say. Yep. We're starting on that journey now of like, sure. Okay, what is this going to be? Look, a learning journey, as you spoke of, right? Like you learn a lot. I know that we're going to be fine, but we've got that, which like you said, like if somebody's coming out with a technology that does what you said, that means you're making an impact and
sure.
And the opportunity. So
I would definitely at the very least send them a cease and desist letter if they are infringing a patent, just because you don't want to let that kind of continue on and maybe you say nothing about it and you wait maybe a year, 2 years later where they made all this money or if it grown. Are you saying, oh man, you owe us this money and you're infringing our patents? Like, hey, I would probably say something earlier the better, to the extent that they are actually infringing on things, just to kind of, so they know that you guys are on their radar, and hey, if you guys keep doing this, then a lawsuit is likely to ensue. I guess that's
at a recent meeting, which was great. Our attorneys were super happy. Like, thankfully, they're out in the wild now, right? We just saw them online, and now I rolled up to a meeting last weekend, and it was an athletic trainers meeting, actually the CATA, California Athletic Trainers meeting. And I rolled in, and I'm kind of looking at all the vendors, the booths, and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're here. So I went over and said, well, pitch me, guys. And, they pitched me exactly our technology in a different way, but, same. And I was like, oh, thanks for being here. And then, took pictures and video and all that and sent it back to the attorneys. But, so we'll see what next steps are. But, it's interesting that we're in this world now of having to protect our patent for the first time, and we'll see what happens.
No, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I have a funny kind of story, just similar to what the story you just encountered. I mean, your situation where, again, Wayne Fromm, the inventor of the selfie stick, he was at a trade show somewhere overseas, I think in Europe, and it essentially was, again, a similar thing where the guy had a booth and he had the selfie stick that he was selling or showing off, and Wayne goes up to the guy. He was like, "Oh man, that's a pretty cool invention. Who invented that?" And he was like, the guy's like, I did. And but I guess Wayne maybe wasn't as nice. He was like, "Actually, I invented it and you're infringing the patent." He was like a manufacturer of this thing. And they, interestingly enough, end up kind of doing a deal or working out where he became, I guess one of the manufacturer for Wayne of the selfie stick.
Yeah.
But he actually confronted him about it at the trade show. So, and the guy, I guess he understood that he was kind of caught dead in the waters, and he admitted to it and fessed up, and they ended up being able to work out something. That's
work out something, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's always better than fighting it out in court. It seems like nobody wins there.
No, for sure. And I think this guy was in China, and we all know how kind of copycats get down in China.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool journey. Thankfully they patented it the way they did. So I feel like we got still a nice runway to figure this out. And, we'll see where we are. Like anything in life, I get a lot of DMs and you guys are killing it, like overnight. I'm like, yeah, it's been 8 years. It's not overnight.
Right. It definitely isn't overnight. It rarely works like that in terms of overnight success. Typically, it's kind of years in the making. I guess I maybe do have just a few final questions for you. So I know one of the things that it seems like maybe from kind of doing the research that people say is, okay, the rechargeable, that generation, that kind of aspect of it, because right now it's like you said, it lasts 30 hours, which is kind of depending on how often you work out, can be a month, can be a little shorter than a month if you're a more intense guy. But I guess when is that kind of still planned to come out at some point in terms of that rechargeable?
Yeah,
the rechargeable. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Thanks for the question. It is interesting that if you think about the athletic training room, they don't want it. They're not asking us for it because
that makes sense. Yeah.
Because think of you as an athlete back in your days at Michigan State. Were they going to hand you a $300, $400 device and say, bring it back tomorrow? They wanted a simple technology that they could give you. It lasts you a month. You come back, you ask for another one. So in our general, 50% of our business, and we do a lot in the military, they don't want a smart device. They don't want a device that talks to anybody. If I'm a Navy SEAL and I need recovery, out in the middle of nowhere, I want a simple, 2-ounce device that fits in the backpack I can take out. It's not talking to my watch. It's not talking to satellites. It's not talking to anything. So the consumer kind of wants it, but the consumer doesn't really understand. Even if I developed a rechargeable, you still have to replace the electrode every 15 fits. So you're still going to have a disposable component to it. And it probably would be about as expensive as replacing the actual Firefly. You wouldn't get that much value. So the answer is yes, we have a prototype, but we're not pushing it. It's probably a year and a half away because that'll be in our Best Buy journey or our, Target, on the shelf journey. Our community still thinks they want it, but once we can get 5 minutes with them, they realize like this is a better solution for $35, $36. I get a month's worth of recovery, no wires, no batteries, no recharging, no additional cord that I'm going to lose. And, when it's done, I buy another one. So no, we're not super close, but we know we'll eventually need to bring it to market.
Right. No, and that makes perfect sense, especially when you're talking about athletes. Because as an 18-year-old, 20-year-old athlete, another thing that I'll be concerned with is I know at 18 or 20 years old, I may lose it as soon as I get home with the thing. That's another thing. So it's easy to just kind of make it disposable, and you can come back in and get another one. Whereas it seems like maybe the consumer who's a little older, it seems like they kind of a little bit maybe more on a budget. So it's kind of trying to kind of stretch it out as much as possible, even though, like you said, it still has a disposable component to it because it's an electrode, and that will need to be disposed at some point. It's not like you can kind of wear that for a year without anything. Just being able to continue to reuse it for a year. So I guess maybe another kind of final question is, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are maybe trying to hey, get off into the entrepreneur game and maybe have an ideal and trying to kind of build a business off of it. Like you said, a lot of times people think, hey, this is an overnight success, but it typically, it doesn't work like that. You have to be kind of committed and willing to put in year after year after year in hopes that at some point your product or whatever it is that you're doing kind of resonates with the audience.
Yeah, I think for me, it's find something you really believe in, that you just wake up every day and you can't imagine it failing, and not being myopic either, and like, building something that nobody else sees, but enough people around me saw it and I definitely felt it. And then, it's interesting. I'm building somewhat of a big company right now, right? It might be actually too big for me with my skill set and where I came from. And I think you have to swallow your pride a little bit and realize when it makes sense to bring in people that are better and smarter than you and have, assets that you don't have. I think that's, so it's a grind, every day's a grind. If you go on our website right now and you emailed a question to Firefly, I still answer it. Because I like the grind. I like being involved. I like to hear my customer. I like to know what's going on with our business. That's going to go away at some point, and I'm going to miss those times. The build is so much fun, right? Like, and there's that time when I'm afraid when it gets too big and I don't get to do the things that I want to do. That helped me build the thing, So, that's, I think my biggest thing is build something that you're totally in love with, that enough people around you say there's something here. It's not just your dream. And then bring people around you that can make you a better individual and together, and listen to them. And don't be the smartest person in the room. I know that's said all the time. But I mean, hopefully you're not the smartest person in the room.
No, and I agree with that 100%, all those things that you just said. And then I guess finally, where can they, I know you talked about the website a little bit, where can they actually purchase a product, or even if they just kind of want to follow you, where can they kind of keep in touch with what you're doing and kind of the progress or some of those, like you said, maybe the 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. I know you kind of put those out there. So where can they kind of follow you, follow Firefly, and just purchase the product if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So myself, I'm on LinkedIn probably the most. I still love that community. I connect to a lot of people in that community. I'm always talking about our product. I have a great team that talks about Firefly on Instagram and Firefly, and Facebook and TikTok. And, so we can be found there. We've got a huge NIL support. So if you go to our Instagram, I mean, we have a ton of NIL athletes using the product and great testimonials. Like I said, if you go on our website and you hit an email to orders at Firefly, it's coming to me. Please ask a question. Always happy to take the time to talk about our product and our journey. And so that's where you find us. And,
nice. And you said it's is it firefly.com?
It's fireflyrecovery.com.
Okay.
Online. And we would love to have you jump on. We do like a discounted, like anything in the new world, right? You give me your email and your cell phone and I'll give you 15% off the first time. And, I suggest buying a starter kit, something like that. Send me an email with your address. I'll hook you up, David. And, I want to get your feedback after your next, basketball game. And,
No, for sure. I'm gonna definitely, like I said, I'll definitely send it, because I'm going to use this thing, and this may be the thing that God is telling me I need to in my life. Because like I said, I play basketball at least once or twice a month. I mean a week, and it's just tough because if I go hard, like I said earlier, man, it's like Tuesday I want to work out again to kind of keep on my schedule, because I typically try to work out 5 times a week, but the last couple of weeks, my legs have been so worn down that I have to take Tuesday as a rest day and then work out Wednesday, which kind of throws things off. So if this thing can kind of help my legs on Tuesday kind of get back into it, this would be a godsend for sure. And so I'll definitely email you. And then I typically try to kind of give away something, or every week that I bring on, I guess I try to give away, personally purchase it and give it away to maybe a lucky winner. So I will look to do that as well, as long as like like I said, my kind of budget, this thing is it's within a budget to the point where I can do that. So I'll look to do that as well for somebody who wants to try it out and wins the raffle. So that information to come
support
on
that as well. I got an extra starter kit for you on that. So I'm happy to support that. I guarantee if you put these on 2 hours, wear them 2 hours after your day, you're going to feel better the next day. 100% guarantee it. And if you're doing any long haul travel, East Coast, West Coast, where you land, your feet are swelling, etc. A lot of athletes use it for that. Just general, a lot of international travel. I go back and forth to the UK because that's where the mothership is. Yep. And wear these, 10, 11 hours on a flight, and you just land, you feel better. Nice. Inflammation is a big part of jet lag, actually. So just reducing inflammation in your body, watching what you eat, right? And then increasing circulation will help with a lot of things. So, yes, please hit me up with the email, and I'll send out a couple starter kits.
Okay. No, it sounds like a plan, and that makes perfect sense with the inflammation. I know that's why they say after surgery to not fly, because it doesn't help out with the inflammation. So I appreciate this, Anthony. I appreciate you talking to the audience. Again, audience, I hope that you got something from this. Definitely order it. And until next time, we are out.